Good evening, 34th PTA. Thank you for joining us for our Summer Series training webinar. I'm Erin Hester, your 34th District PTA President. While we wait for this presentation to begin, I just wanted to point out that if you have any questions during this presentation, you can enter them into the chat feature and we have someone monitoring that chat for you. If you are joining us at a later date, you can always reach us at 34thpta.org, click on the Contact Us tab, and you can email any of our board members. Thank you for being here tonight, and we will begin this presentation shortly. Good evening, 34th District PTA. I just realized that I was muted this whole entire time. This is what happens with technology. So I'm sure you've all been there. Not the first time I've done this. Sorry about that. We're going to proceed. Thank you for joining us for our webinar on approval and financial processes of PTA. For those of you who have not met me yet, my name is Erin Hester. I am your 34th District PTA President. If you're just tuning in and want to point out that during any part of this webinar, if you have questions, you're welcome to enter them into the chat section of the YouTube webinar, and we have people monitoring those chats. Heather Ippolito, our parliamentarian, is monitoring those questions coming in, and as well as Zoila Pineda, our district auditor. Please note that for this webinar, we will not be delving into the specifics of any one position. There will be training coming soon that will give you more of an in-depth and direct instruction on your PTA position. What we want to equip you with tonight is the overall process of how events, finances, activities are all approved and handled by PTA. Before we begin this presentation, I'd like to introduce you to our presenters. With us is Rosemary Baldessaroni. Kelly Zefus and Zoe Pineda. I'm going to let them share with you a little bit about who they are and their experience with PTA. So ladies, don't forget to unmute yourselves.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Rosemary Baldessaroni. I am the 34th District PTA Treasurer. I have about 15 years experience on PTA. I have been a member for 24 years. I currently serve on PTA to better the future of my grandchildren. I am pleased that I was elected to be, or asked to be, on the Board of Managers this year, and I serve as the Membership Services Commission and the Bylaws Committee, as well as I have a seat on the South Antelope Valley Council as Secretary.
Kelly, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. So glad you could join us tonight. My name, as you know, is Kelly Zefus. I have been part of PTA here in the Santa Clarita Valley for about 7 years. This year, however, my son just graduated from elementary school, and I will be stepping in as the treasurer for Rio Norte, as well as serving as the treasurer here for Santa Clarita Valley Council PTA. And I currently serve as the hospitality chair for the 34th District PTA. Glad you could join us. Don't forget, if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comments tonight. We will try and get back to you as soon as we can.
Zoila.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Zoila Pineda, and I am the auditor for 34th District. I've been in PTA for 11 years, 2 years with LU and with South Antelope Valley Council within the units in South Antelope Valley Council. If you have questions, please don't forget to type up.
So without further ado, we'll begin our presentation.
Sorry, guys, I forgot to hit the unmute. It all starts with the budget. And with that, we have to create the budget. So in creating the budget, you need to determine your goals and your programs for the year. In the spring, the budget committee, which is appointed by the president, will meet and create the proposed budget. The incoming president shall be a member of the committee. When the budget is being developed in advance of taking office, the treasurer is designated as a committee chairperson. For example, the budget committee may include the financial officers, board-elect, and current board members. The committee develops a budget and presents the proposed budget for adoption to the current executive board and then to the membership at the association. At the last association meeting of the year, excuse me. Remember, the budget is a working document and can be adjusted as needed. Any changes will need to be made through the executive board and get association approval. Approving the budget. The association approves the release of any funds prior to the next association meeting in the fall. This allows the incoming board the ability to cover routine summer expenses as outlined in the bylaws. After the budget is adopted by the association, it should be followed closely in all financial transactions. Adoption of the budget does not authorize the expenditure of funds. The current PTA board cannot make any binding decisions for the incoming board. This is called incoming the next board. We cannot enter into any contracts before July 1st. During the first association meeting after July 1st, the budget should be reevaluated and adopted. All checks written over the summer will need to be ratified. Be sure to release funds for upcoming expenditures. This means any activities occurring before the association meetings. Again, remember the budget is a working document and can be adjusted as needed. Any changes made will need executive board and association approval.
So let's talk about committees. Committees are a great way to plan your events and keep your executive board meetings short. A committee works out all the finite details so they can bring their plans to the board for approval. There are different kinds of committees. So you have the slide in front of you, but let's break it down a little bit more. Your standing committee is established to perform a continuing function, and it remains in existence permanently for the life of the assembly that it established or your association. The standing committee chairs are part of your executive board. Each of your PTAs are different. Some examples of standing committees on your PTA could be hospitality, room parent, family engagement, legislation, and some of you, it could be membership, if membership is not a VP elected position for your board. But how do you know which committees are standing committees? The simple answer is you can check your bylaws. In your bylaws, it stipulates what committees are standing committees and what are special committees. Why do we even form committees? I'll get to that in just a second. Let's talk about the special committees. A special committee may be appointed by the president or elected by your association for a specific purpose. Things like your harvest festival, your book fair, Red Ribbon Week. These are committees that are going to need time to plan and create their event, but once it's over and their reports are filed, it's done. That is a special committee. Your committees are formed to plan, to promote, and to implement the activities that your PTA voted on. The quorum, when you have a committee, is a simple majority of the members that are serving on that committee. One thing I want to remind all of you that's important. Committees make recommendations, not decisions. They're meeting to come up with the plan for what that event will do. Those recommendations are then brought to the executive board for discussion and approval. All projects and activities must have the approval of the executive board and the association in advance. And this also includes the fact that funds must be authorized by the executive board or the association before plans are implemented or any funds are spent. And then, of course, bills must be presented for payment. One last note I want to give you about committees for those of you who are presidents and are on our call. You actually serve as an ex officio member of all committees except the nominating committee.
Now let's get into requesting funds. All funds requested must be on the approved budget and released by the association. Funds are requested through a document called a payment authorization form. Payment authorization forms are provided by the California State PTA and are to be used anytime that funds are being requested. Some PTA units use their own forms that they have created. All are acceptable as long as it states the following and is filled out appropriately. Who is requesting the funds? What the funds are for? Receipts and invoices are provided. Amount requested. There is a signature of the person requesting the funds and an area in the president and so that the president and secretary sign and date the form to approve the disbursement. It will also need to include an area where the treasurer can log and record the budget category, check number written, and for the amount requested. There are two forms provided by California State PTA. The payment authorization request for reimbursement and the payment authorization for advance. For the reimbursement, when requesting a reimbursement for items purchased, you must provide a receipt or invoice. The forms are located on the California State PTA website, capta.org. Before or during the executive or association meeting, have the form filled out completely. And most importantly, please sign the form and attach all receipts. Then provide the form to the treasurer for approval by the board. Once approved, the form is signed by the president and secretary. Once the form is signed by the president and secretary, the check can be written. All PTA checks require 2 signatures. So the next form is the advance. The reason you would use this form is if an advance is needed to cover the cost of any events, supplies, or any items needed for the PTA. The guidelines for requesting an advance are very similar to the reimbursement. Before or during the executive or association meeting, have the form filled out and signed with a description and estimated cost. Then provide the form to the treasurer for approval by the board. Once the money is spent, provide the treasurer with all receipts from events or items purchased within 2 weeks of receiving the check. All unused money must be returned to the PTA with the cash verification form filled out.
Counting money, a very important part that we go over when it comes to dealing with finances in your PTA. First and foremost, I want to remind everyone that even if you're not the treasurer and you're part of the board, you are still very much responsible for the finances. All board members share a fiduciary responsibility to manage PTA money well on behalf of your association. And as one of the 3 required officers for a PTA, the treasurer is the authorized custodian of the PTA funds. So what's important to know as you're collecting funds and counting money at the end of an event? First and foremost, as Rosemary has already said, 2 or more people must count money together. One needs to be an executive board member, the other can be a PTA member. The other important thing to remember when you've got people counting money is that people counting money shall not be related by blood or marriage or live in the same household. A cash verification form, as you can see on your screen, is completed and signed by any person's counting. The treasurer receives the deposit. The treasurer will keep the original cash verification form in their records. Prepare the counted money for deposit with the bank, filling out a duplicate bank deposit receipt. All of this your treasurer will learn as we go along. But money should never go home with you or anyone counting. If it cannot be deposited the same day of the event that it is collected, it should be stored in a safe place at school. Ideally, and we know this doesn't happen at every school, your PTA should have its own lockbox that is secured and cannot be taken out. A lot of schools have them secured to a wall or secured to a physical piece of furniture in the school's office or somewhere else. That is something, if you need help, please reach out to us at council so we can help you speak to your school and try and make sure if you do not have that kind of location, that maybe we can help figure that out for you. And last but not least, I just want to remind you again, we are all financially responsible for money, not just the chairpersons who might be counting all of the money, doing the cash verification forms, but also you.
Now the role of the treasurer. This is an important position on your PTA. The treasurer maintains the permanent record and tracks everything for your for the monies that go in and out of your PTA. On this slide, there are several items on here. I'm going to briefly go over them, but before I do, being a treasurer is a big responsibility, but please know that you have help from each level. You have help at your council and at your district and at state. So if ever you're feeling despaired or you don't know what you're doing, please reach out and help us because we are always here to help. So as I said, the treasurer will maintain a permanent track record of all the income receipts and disbursements. You will make sure that you have a treasurer's report for each meeting for executive and for association. Your association meeting runs from association meeting to association meeting. So if you meet in August and then you don't have a meeting until December, you want to make sure you cover those your next meetings in December. Your December treasurer's report should be from August until then. Your executive board reports are from your executive meeting to the next executive meeting. So make sure that you have those reports available at each meeting. You will receive funds counted by 2 other people. Again, we have said this, please make sure that you are the last one to receive the money. So it is counted by 2 people and then you receive the money and then you take it to the bank. You prepare the authorization forms or make sure you have them available for your board members to fill out if they are requesting an advance or reimbursement. Remember, a reimbursement requires receipts. In advance, you need to have the receipts within 2 weeks of the event closing. You're going to issue your checks after those payment authorization forms have been signed by the president and secretary, and you will make sure that there are 2 signatures on every check given out from the PTA. You will make sure you keep the checkbook up to date with the ledger, the register, and your bank reconciliations. So make sure you are reconciling your bank statements every month. I recommend having the auditor go over your reconciliations. It's always better to have someone double check you. And they can perform a 5-minute audit of your books. You just sit there with them. They go over, the district auditor goes over our books and does a 5-minute audit at our meetings. Also, you are going to track the membership. Yes, we have a membership chair, but ultimately the numbers for the membership comes down to what is in the treasurer's books. So please make sure you are tracking your membership and you are turning it in to your councils, or to your councils and to your districts on time. And just sorry about that. So just make sure that you are maintaining all the financial records of the PTA. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this presentation. There will be another presentation. I believe that's going to be on the next slide. So thank you.
Sorry, guys. I was trying to find my mute thing and I couldn't get the mute button to start. This is a moment in which we wanted to see if anybody who is on and watching had questions. There is a slight delay from when we're actually live right this second to when you're seeing us. So we're just gonna pause and wait a couple moments and just make sure before we continue that you don't have any questions. And if you have questions later, you can always reach out to us at a later date. You can email us your questions and we'd be happy to answer them that way too. So while we're waiting for people to just make sure, while we're waiting to make sure that there aren't any questions, because like I said, there is a lag. Anytime we go live on YouTube, you're always seeing us a few seconds behind when we're actually presenting. So while we're waiting, just to make sure, I don't want to miss anyone. There will be more in-depth, as I said in the beginning, more in-depth training for each of your positions. This is just an overview of how our process works. Treasurers, I highly recommend. I mean, I recommend training for all positions, but treasurers, you have a very important job. And I feel that, you know, training on your end is vital. Hold on a second, please. Okay, so there is one question coming through right now, and my panelists here are welcome to jump in. With COVID happening, they have not done a budget yet. Someone want to talk about recommendations on that? Oh, and I guess the follow-up to that question is, does it need to be approved prior to July 1? I can go ahead and answer. Ideally, it should be. Budget should be something that you're preparing with your outgoing board and your incoming board. I know we're in very unique times. So if you haven't done that budget yet, I would say you get working on it now. The budget is always presented and approved at your first association meeting in the start of the year. So I would at least support it. I would at least approve it with your board and bring it to your association at your very first association meeting, but you do need to put a budget in place. And sooner than later, you can't start any of your business without having some type of guideline on what that, what that's gonna be. And let's plan, I always say plan for in an optimistic way, plan for the best outcome. Let's say we're all, even though I know we're probably not, we're all gonna go back and we're all gonna start, back to school the way we should. Plan for that, because it's always easier to cancel things than it is to try and put things back into place. So I know we don't know what the next year looks like. I know it's hard to budget. I know it's hard to plan, but if we just do the best we can and hope for the best, we at least have something there that should we be able to go back and have even a halfway normal school year next year, we have those funds planned out. So I hope that answers that question. And I know there's other questions coming in, so I hope that our other panelists are grabbing those. And if somebody else would like to take over, please do.
Sorry, Erin, I think, oh, go ahead, Zoila.
No,
you got
it's
in.
okay. No, go ahead. Go ahead and answer. The second question was, is the treasurer the only person that can make a deposit?
Are you going to answer? I thought you were facilitating the questions. That's why I'm confused. Sorry, guys. No, the treasurer is not the only one who can make a deposit. Any executive board member can make a deposit, but just remember, when you take the deposit, you need to count the money and verify the amount and then sign the form. So you want to make sure you're doing that and make sure you make a copy of that.
All right. Last call for questions before we proceed. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on. If you have any questions for us later, feel free to reach out to us. You can email us, you can catch us. You can email any of us through our website and hit the contact us link, and that will bring you to our information. Those are your presenters' emails. You want to jot those down as well. All right, and
I just thank everybody for attending.
Absolutely.
I just want to thank everybody for attending. Sorry, I apologize. I am a little bit nervous, so this is one of my first webinars, so please bear with me on this. But again, I just want to thank you guys for attending this webinar. Sorry, Erin, thank you.
And I second that. That's okay. We all get a little nervous. These are new to all of us. You guys are in the same boats we are right now. We're all learning this new technology. We are not used to doing our trainings and our meetings and any of our other business virtually. So it's a new process. It's a new learning curve. But thankfully we have the technology that we can continue. And so I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for anyone who's on tonight that's joined us. I'm grateful for those who will be joining us later to watch us when you have some time. And I thank you everyone for all that you do for our children and families. So our next webinar will be on running a meeting. That is scheduled for July 1st at 7 p.m. We're going to go over motions, reports, the agenda, basically the whole meeting process, how that works, and how you run a meeting, and the difference between your executive board meeting and your association meetings. So please register for that at www.34thpta.org. That's 34thpta.org. And for tonight, we just thank you for being here. Thank you for your support, and we look forward to when we can see your faces live, and more importantly, when we can see each other in person. So have a good evening, and we will talk to you soon. Night.
Good night. Thank you.
1 minute while I jump out of this now. That's always the hardest part. All right, everyone. See you later.